Alright, cool. It's 5:10, so we're going to start. Thank you guys all for showing up on time for the first class. We're so excited to have our first speaker, Greg Berkin, today. A little background on Greg. He founded the first educational software company for Apple. He's the founder of several companies, including Think Educational Software, Think Mobile. Currently the managing director of Concourse Ventures. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for coming. A lot of students excited to hear you, so if you can welcome him to class.
Thank you very much, Mackenzie. It's a pleasure to be here. First time to Haas, but I'm a Bay Area, almost a Bay Area native. I'm originally from New York, grew up in upstate New York, and I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. Are there other entrepreneurs here? Who's an entrepreneur? Who wants to be an entrepreneur? You all know what a serial entrepreneur is. It's not like a serial killer, but it's someone who is sort of addicted to starting businesses, and I would say I fall in that category. So what I wanted to do today,
Yeah, so there we go.
There we go. I wanted to travel back in time, 30 years. It's an interesting thing. One of my favorite films is Back to the Future, and if we do things well today, hopefully we can reflect, inspire, motivate you to become an entrepreneur and contemplate some business failures and recoveries. That's a difficult thing to talk about with business is failures. You have to learn from your failures, embrace them, and move on. And that's always the toughest thing. And from what I've learned from other students and entrepreneurs in other countries, not the United States necessarily, is they're not really allowed to fail. Therefore, starting a business is tougher elsewhere. In this country, we embrace that, and we have a chance to restart and start over, and so it's a great thing. So. And I'd like to make this a very interactive session and hear from you and that kind of thing. So Back to the Future. The reason why I love this film is because they wrote it so that the character Marty McFly could go back in 30 years from 1985 back to 1955 and see what his parents were like and then reflect on that. And it was a brilliant script because time travel brings forth a lot of issues. It allows you to reflect on what's changed, what's happened, what you might be like, or what your parents were like, and you didn't realize you were either the same or different. And so we're going to have a little bit of that in my story. So, and we just passed the 30-year future anniversary of Back to the Future, which is very interesting. So, in 1978, I started a bartending school. I was 16 years old. In New York State, the drinking age was 18. I thought it'd be a great way to meet girls, make money, and put myself through college. So I took a class in New York City and paid my money and wanted to learn to be a bartender, and I was disappointed because I learned to make 2 drinks, a martini and a Manhattan, and I couldn't go to work for a bar. Even though I was taller, I could look the part, but I couldn't do it. And so my friend said, I kept complaining about it and said, why are you so upset? And I said, well, I didn't learn anything. I can't go to work. And he said, well, if you think you know so much, why don't you do your own bartending school and learn from that? And that's what I did. And it was a seminar-style bartending school. Here I am in 1970-something. Here's what it looked like. Rented a room at a Holiday Inn. Used real liquor, which was dangerous stuff in the 70s because of drinking and driving. But I learned how to organize a class, how to present a curriculum, how to get people to have fun. The point was to learn recipes. I had to organize it, present it, get people to attend. I put an ad in the paper, mixology certification, the study of mixing drinks. You get a certificate if you take the class, and you learn something, and everyone had a great time. When we had to develop a curriculum, 100 drinks, you had to leave knowing 100 drinks. And then you realized that a lot of the drinks were all variants of other drinks, and so it really wasn't that difficult to learn 100 drinks. And we had then got into offering job placement assistants, we called it, JPA. It was, we'd call up all the local bars and say, who's hiring? We'd put a list together, and at the end of class, we'd give out the list, and then people could actually get employed. That's how it started. Eventually it became the largest bartending school in New York State. Did it in 40 cities, Long Island, New York City, we extended to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and it's called the Moneris Bartending School. I'd been an exchange student in high school in Argentina, lived in Argentina, and I came back almost fluent in Spanish at the time, and one of the terms I learned was tips or coins, monedas, and so I thought, that's a great name for a bartending school, so I gave it that name. We got sponsors, and it became a big deal. I had a lot of fun teaching the class. I used to hire an instructor to do it, and I remember working up the book and the guide and getting sponsors, but eventually one time the teacher didn't show up. I had to get in front of the class and teach bartending, even though I'd never been a bartender myself. And that actually was the turning point, one of the turning points for the school, because I was forced to get up here and prepare drinks and teach the technique I'd watched a million times, and it's a big difference doing and telling versus watching and listening. And so it made a strong impression on me. The other thing that we ran into were occupational and educational laws for each state. They're all different, and we started to run into trouble requiring a license. In New York State, if you charge under $100, your tuition could be essentially a seminar fee. So we charged right up to 99 bucks. We wouldn't go over $100, otherwise we had to put up a student protection bond and all kinds of things that the other professional schools ran into. But the school became so successful, it started to take away students from other courses that were established classes for teaching culinary services and that kind of thing. And we started to run into really strange things like the mob. And I'm not kidding, but a lot of bars on the East Coast used to be owned by some characters that you really don't want to run into. And they would train their own students on how they would do that, and they would start to show up at the classes and intimidate my receptionists. I had 800 numbers where they'd call up and they'd say, welcome to Moneris Bartending School, and go through a whole script. And it became a very, very interesting way to offer a business. And I can remember my uncle saying to me, Greg, do you want to be known for serving liquor, or do you want to be doing something more admirable, like programming or the high-tech world or what's happening with computers? My uncle was one of my main influences, named Robert Richardson, who was an entrepreneur himself, worked in the high-tech world. So I came out during the summer to work for him. And my dad worked at IBM. And we had the very first IBM PC. So I taught myself to program and worked for my uncle for a summer, got an Apple II computer in parts, put it together, and instead of getting paid, got the pieces for an Apple II, and went to college my freshman year knowing how to program. And so I started a software company at the same time. I had a bartending school at the same time when I was in college, which was a very difficult thing to juggle. And you all know about what it's juggling, like schedules and stuff. Imagine having 2 different phone lines, Moneris Bartending School, and then a software company, and then having to go study every night. It became very, very difficult. So that's me actually teaching a class with my uniform, even though I never had done one day behind the bar. This is what some of the signs look like. So from 1984, I started a company. I went to Potsdam, State University of New York in Potsdam, close to the Canadian border, state school, very good for computer science, one of the best at the time. And this is what it looks like during the winter. Awful. Well, you can imagine, living through that. There's nothing else to do but start a business. So I did. And in my dorm room, the Apple Macintosh, I worked for a dealership downtown, and the Apple Macintosh was introduced. And they had a very, very sexy ad about the team behind the Macintosh. It was an incredible effort that Steve Jobs put together to get these designers to design the first computer with a bitmap display, a mouse, and this radical new way of interacting with computing. And I saw that and said, I've got to develop some software for this. It's incredible. And so I did put a team together, very first thing you need. And then I had to buy, because you couldn't develop software on the Apple Macintosh computer, you had to buy the predecessor called the Lisa computer. These were $10,000. I had to buy 2 of them. A half megabyte, 1/2 of a meg of RAM was a board this big and was $5,000 extra. So, 20 grand for 2 of these, big, huge commitment. Here's a Mac, and here's the Apple IIs. And we dove in with early software that was undocumented, and we were really one of 100 developers listed for developing software. And I chose educational software because the Apple II was well known in schools. Every school had an Apple II, and you could learn on it, or an IBM PC. But I thought, wow, there's a huge list of companies, 100 companies. Today, Apple has millions of developers. There were only 100 at that time. And the software that was coming out, there weren't a lot of educational programs. So I thought we had a great opportunity to develop some software, and I didn't want to miss the market, so I went for, first this is our very first ad we took out in Macworld magazine, $49, design on a Mac, Mac Edge, a package of educational learning programs, Mind over Mac, a series of mind-challenging games, $50, $49, dealer inquiries invited, and our address and phone number at the actual Apple dealership where I worked. And the phone started to ring, and we started to take orders for software we didn't even have yet, which was the most ridiculous commitment you could ever make. And these are some of the packages I brought, and as you can see, does everyone remember what a 3.5-inch floppy disk looks like? I'm going to tell you when you can see them, but this was a big deal. Steve Jobs made a bold bet to go with a Sony 3.5-inch diskette drive, because conventional disks were bigger, semi-floppy, they were larger, 5.25 inches. And so he went with this, and it had this really nice mechanism. They were single-sided, but the cost of goods for these at the time when they first came out were $8 a piece. So I'm selling something for $50 with an $8 cost of goods just for the blank media. We have to write this offer, put it on here, put the label, make packaging, package it up, and ship it out and try to make a profit. Whoa, and so that's crazy. So it wasn't the greatest market study that you could sort of expect, but it was a way to try to get in the market. We took thousands of dollars of orders and started to process the credit cards, and we are now committed. Not what you want to be doing in a company today. So here I am with my partner at the time, Frank Marafino, incredible programmer, now lives in Las Vegas, and we were dropouts. Speaking of dropout was a cool thing because, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and those guys, and the company took off. And we had to decide, what the actual educational software is we're offering and what the games are we're offering. I put an ad in, and we started banking money. Here's our original office, the Apple II, and this was one of our ads. Our products, the Skill Builders line of products, our customers eventually became 50 states, 10 Canadian provinces, other countries, and they were building a research park in upstate New York, and it was all about investing in the area. And I thought, wow, this is going to be great. We're going to have a new office there. And the guy who was behind this, I took this ad out to say, we fully support being a tenant in this new R&D, research and development center, where this guy was inventing some technology to do x-rays for the airports. And he turned out to be a university professor in one of the schools in upstate New York. And it was all based on sort of fraudulent stuff. And so now I was now endorsing this R&D center, which was not a smart thing to do in terms of the future of your business. And so you can imagine how tough that was. But this was one of our ads. And this was the program. And again, we committed to a $50 list price. And I said, well, we don't want to miss the market. So we had everything from elementary ed all the way up to sort of, almost junior high school. 4 to 14 is what we said. And a gradual or a modular way to build up to those programs that you could learn yourself and it would improve. And we said, well, how do we have 8 programs on one disk? How can we fit 8 programs on one disk? That's all that will fit on a single-side floppy disk. That's how we decided how many programs to include And at the time, there really weren't other competitive packages that were 50 bucks, but they were for one program, not for 8. I thought, wow, we'll just blow it out. But we have to test 8 programs. We have to run them, program them, make sure they all work, and that they were pedagogically sound. We worked with a whole bunch of educators in upstate New York, Potsdam, St. Lawrence University, Clarkson University, and Canton, DC. 4 universities in one place. The university setting is the best place to get talent, to get academic help, and to start a business. Because once you leave school, you're now on your own, and you've got to go build those networks. You're in the greatest networking area in the world to start a business, right here at Berkeley. So this was our first market entry. It was called Mac Edge first, then Mac Edge 2. We built our marketing, we did all the design on Mac, and Mind Over Mac was the game. This is our earliest package, and these were all based on popular board games. Master Code was, I'm forgetting, Destroyer was like Battleship, Third Dimension was one, Trivial Intrigue was like Trivial Pursuit. And so the company took off. Here's our dealer map. This is our early analytics. Right? A little dot on the wall for every dealer that would call us and order our software. It became a pretty big dealer network, but you had to track it on an Apple II with a little database and put information in and then print labels. That was about all you could do to follow up on stuff, was print a label and send out an email. Very crude. Now we have CRM and we have all kinds of Salesforce ways to follow up, much, much better, much more robust. These were what discs looked like. We then took out ads. Here was a future ad. We challenged minds. We had to decide, are we an educational company or are we a game company? And in sort of my dysfunctional way, I wanted to be both. I thought, well, we can't miss. So I came out to one of the shows out here. It was called the Mac World Expo. And we started to get great reviews. Here's one of the educators' reviews in one of the magazines. In fact, here's one that the 7-year-old wrote, and you can kind of read it. I like the program because it keeps score. I don't like it because the score doesn't go to 100. And so on and so forth. So we had great publicity. Kids were designing their own reviews. Amazing stuff. This is what our stock room looked like. And I designed the package with the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT. They had a school of packaging science. I went to them and said, help me design a package that is light, can hold this disc, will survive being in a mailer, and it's only going to cost us a couple dollars to ship because I have a tiny margin. Even a $50 product, giving up to a dealer so many points, cut the thing in half for distribution, and then shipping. Netflix used the same strategy to design a DVD that can survive an envelope by designing it and making sure the packaging is as cheap and as efficient as possible, because that's what it's about in your margin. You really have to do that. We weren't great at it, but this was our early effort. So I'll pass these around if you want to take a look. Here's the packaging I just described, and we even changed our artwork. Here is the thinker, renounced thinker, right, holding an apple in front of a book, and then here he is using a Mac for the more adult things. We started to develop our marketing. This was very crude marketing from just an idea. This was me. They published a magazine in 1985. It's called the President's Catalog. And they featured the president of every Mac company, and they wanted a cool shot of you. And so I stacked all the Macs up behind my head in my dorm room in Potsdam, and I put the software on every screen. Here's Trivial Intrigue here. And we created these big giant boxes. This was to make us look like we had a big giant corporate headquarters, even though we started in a dorm room. And I'll pass around the President's Catalog, which is something I'm actually really proud of because it featured every one of the presidents, a full-page background. So like I mentioned, a time travel movie. This is going back to 1985. Here I am, right here in 1985. Describes the products, my background. It says, even though I have a computer science degree from the State University of New York, I'm really an entrepreneur at heart. My business ventures have run the gamut. I'm 20 years old, and I'm talking about having multiple businesses already, like some arrogant kid, but interesting. So the other trivia question I asked about this, because I'll pass this around, But who was the president of Microsoft in 1985? It was not Bill Gates. And no one usually knows the answer. Well, it's right here in this president's catalog because they highlighted the president of every one of the companies. It is, there we go. It's John Shirley. Here he is on his boat, the Shirley Temple. He came from Tandy Corporation, which was Radio Shack. Bill Gates was too shy to ask John Shirley to leave Radio Shack, and so he asked somebody else at a party to go up. Will you go up and ask this guy if he'll maybe come over and run our company because we needed an executive. So that's how John Shirley got hired. He was on the board of Microsoft for 30 years. He's now the largest Ferrari collector in the world. He just retired, and he's a good friend. But it's an interesting story. So I'm going to pass these two around so you can see those. Okay, so. They even printed up baseball cards, which was kind of a neat thing. This is what the disc looks like, close up, the manual. Even little things here. It says Greg has been a painter. Keep in mind, this is when I'm 20. Has been a painter, a balloon vendor, and a disc jockey, because I did a lot of different things. This was our software from Mind Over Mac, the 5 games. And these were some of the professional shots. Having a Mac company allowed me to meet some of the most incredible programmers and design people in the world. I mean, extraordinary. Our software became bundled with the Mac in Holland and Spain, translated into multiple languages. It was an incredible experience working with Apple and being an outside developer. But one of the limitations was I was from upstate New York. I needed to move to California to take advantage of that stuff, and eventually I did. Excuse me. So we became on the soft sell hot list. This was kind of like the Billboard music chart of software. Getting on the list was a big deal. And all the best-selling lists, and you can see Microsoft, Apple Computer, and then think educational software.
Okay.
And so it was an extraordinary thing. That's the president's catalog I mentioned. That's the same thing I'm describing. There's John Shirley right here. So one interesting thing, I was just watching, and now we're kind of reflecting back. I don't know if you've seen this movie before or know who Aaron Swartz is. Founder of Reddit and the Creative Commons and a lot of other stuff. Incredible programmer. Went to Stanford, was turned down by Berkeley. Brilliant mind. And did some incredible stuff. It was a great documentary you should see on him, which I watched recently. But he ended up committing suicide because of what happens. It's a tragic story, but here he is here. What you notice is here's Aaron, and I was watching the documentary, and on his screen is my software right there. He's playing with the educational software. And there's the actual screen of one of the games right there. So it made an impact on me. It was a tremendous thing. This was one of the matching programs that we had at the time. And there he is. And so I got to meet Steve Jobs, incredible personality. I saw him in one of the shows, met him for the very first time at one of the shows when John Scully was running the company. If you know John Scully, he came from Pepsi, and Jobs very famously said to Scully, you're working at Pepsi. Do you want to continue to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come change the world? Wow, amazing. And Scully said, I've got to do this. This is extraordinary. And one of the lessons here is you need executives, you need CEOs, you need people that are brighter than you are to help run your companies. A lot of entrepreneurs like to start companies, they don't like to run them. And that's why Scully was needed for the financing, for the marketing, for other roles that Jobs. They ended up, it was an awful situation just 2 years later after the Mac. I don't know if you've seen the Steve Jobs movie and that kind of thing. Scully kicks Jobs out, but Jobs then said that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to him. His humility was through the roof. I think he was worth 10 million one year, 100 million the next year, and then a billion the next year or something. It was so exponential that he was out of control. But interesting thing. So this was the day that I met all these guys. I'm still very good friends with Laz today. And here's just a few photos of some of those events and jobs at his desk with the Mac. He was very proud of this product team he put together. It was quite incredible. And Steve Jobs signed a t-shirt to me. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, "Let's go change the world, Steve Jobs," based on that sort of quote. Here's his signature on his business card from Pixar, and this is on the back of the Mac. But I was trying to get some t-shirts made up for you guys to say this. I couldn't quite get it done today, but that's what I'm kind of working on. So anyway, so I got my undergrad degree in computer science at Potsdam, upstate New York. The company took off. I said, you know, Bill Gates has dropped out of Harvard. Everybody, you know, what do you need to go to school for? This is crazy. Academia is the best environment, just like I said. So I said, I need to get my MBA. I feel like I really have not learned everything I need to do, so I went to Duke in 1999 and graduated in 2001. And first day at Duke University, I'm in the class, MBA class in decision models. And our text is Bob Clemen's book on making hard decisions. If you've never seen it or heard about it, it's a fantastic book. You should get it. It talks about a lot of software programs that connect to Excel and allow you to do economic decision-making, modeling. So you can decide on the path of which is the best path to go in a very cogent and clear manner. Great, great book. And so this is what it looks like. You make these trees, decision tree, a crystal ball, sense it. There's a whole bunch of programs you can get that weigh the economic path of your decision making so that you can justify what you're doing. I'm in the class, and the first business case that Bob Clemen produces is about starting a Macintosh software company and whether or not to outsource the disks or not, like you make them yourself or you go to somebody else and do it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is crazy. So I walk up to Bob at the end of class, and I had not met him before, and I said, you know, that's strange, your business case, I kind of did that, you know, whatever. And he looked at this president's catalog, and he looked at the software, and he goes, Greg, he goes, my kids learn math and reading from your software. And I'm like, oh my God, he was like that Back to the Future moment I'm talking about. This is crazy. And so I'm in this classroom, and I spent 2 years at Duke, amazing experience. I filmed the entire thing, took a camera with me. We rappelled down the Great Wall of China, made some of the greatest friends in the world. I interact with many of them today. It's an amazing experience, and that's why academia is so important. But one of the things that I did was I was like, this story stuck with me. Bob Clemen, the world's expert on decision models, his kids learn math and reading from my software. And now I'm in his class learning decision models from him. Wow, what an experience. So we used to have these things called registration cards. You know, nobody does this anymore, but you used to mail them in, right, for your software. So I went and looked for the Bob Clemen registration card from 1986, and I found it. And I'm like, wow, I have proof that his kids learned math and reading, and I couldn't wait to read his comments. The kids love it. I think that $20 for a backup copy is exorbitant, given that single-sided discs are $2 or less now. And I'm like, the guy's kid learned math and reading from my software, and $20 is too expensive. That's the problem with education. So I waited till Duke, I filmed everything, and we had this like roast at the end, and I thought, you know, I gotta do something here. This is incredible. So I invited Bob Clemen up on stage, and I gave him an award for the most relevant business case. I told that story, you know, first day at Duke, you know, Macintosh case, I did this. But look, his kids learn math and reading, and now I'm in his class, and look, $20 is too expensive. And so I said, well, look, Bob, you know, it's almost 20 years later. I'd like to give you back your $20. Give me back my $90,000, which is what it cost to go to Duke University. And the place came down. It was unbelievable. So anyway, this is what kind of impact you can have with your work as an entrepreneur, as a programmer, as an artist, as an engineer. And there will be ways to measure it that you don't know yet. And it is coming. So one thing I did, Woz has been a friend, and I realized that Woz has really never been hosted at the White House. This was 10 years ago. And so I called up my friend, who was a special assistant to the president in the White House, and I said, let's host Steve Wozniak at the White House. And he said, wow, that's a great idea. How do we do that? And so he made arrangements, and Woz was going to the Patent and Trademark Office in Alexandria. He was the honored inventor for inventing the personal computer. And I arranged a tour for Woz at the White House, and it was an amazing thing. Just to hang with Woz, totally hysterical. He's very funny. Steve Wozniak's into practical jokes. There we are, and this is the Situation Room, which is, the most secretive room, the war room, basically. And he starts pounding on the door. Come on out of there, there's a war on, or something. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And so it was hysterical. And, but Woz, here he is at one of the monitors. No one's ever seen these photos, by the way. And here I am sitting at my buddy's desk. I got to take pictures in front of the podium. And what we didn't realize, and this was sort of reflective of the previous administration, is that I had chosen a day when they were featuring the top 10 NASCAR drivers in all of their cars on the south lawn of the White House. And normally that'd be okay, but it was a strange thing because everybody knew who the top 10 drivers for NASCAR were. Nobody knew who Steve Wozniak was at the White House. You're kidding me. The inventor of the personal computer, this, and so I realized, wow, something's really wrong here. And but it was an incredible experience, and I'm actually trying to do it again this year before Obama leaves. We're close to setting it up if we pull it off. So here's Woz here, and this is John Shirley, I mentioned, from Microsoft. This is his restoration shop and just to show you his collection, this is a taste of it. It's quite something. I got to interview him and spend the day with him. He comes to Pebble Beach, the Concours d'Elegance, the greatest car show in the world. He wins often. Each one of these cars is quite extraordinary. And in fact, this car is the Roberto Rossellini Ferrari that won Pebble Beach last year. And so each car is, unbelievable. So that was quite something. This is his private collection of work. And I've interviewed him for a documentary about the car show, which is one of my passions, to make films and do other things. Just as some other background, I threw some other stuff in here because I didn't know. I also developed some early pen software called NetWriter, writing over the internet for the first time. Way back in '93, is a Russian company called Paragraph, developed the software in the Apple Newton. And this is what, I then worked for a company called CIC, Communication Intelligence Corporation. It's a public company, had a Chinese division, had Chinese, 250 Chinese people working on a Chinese recognizer. I was so excited to work for this company. 3 weeks in, they go bankrupt. And so, working for yourself, working for a public company, and they paid us in stock options and minimum wage. And so you had to decide, you either leave and you get stock options and minimum wage of a bankrupt company. This is a Stanford research company that grew out of SRI. And pen computing was way ahead of its time. Another one of those difficult things to make work. I then went to Intel. I was a technology evangelist at Intel for almost 7 years. Worked with all the Hollywood studios on the specification for the DVD, the digital video disc. And Intel had a big effort in Hollywood. We had in CAA, Creative Artists Agency, we had a media lab to show the Hollywood community what